He stood frozen in his own front yard, 3 officers surrounding him, hands twitching over their holsters. The flashing red and blue lights painted his face in sharp contrasts. Fear, disbelief, rage. Across the street, a woman smirked, casually sipping iced tea, the satisfaction in her eyes unmistakable. "Sir, step away from the device." His jaw clenched. My device? My house? But what happened next would prove that in this neighborhood ownership meant nothing, only appearances did. But let's start from the beginning. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon in a wealthy, suburban neighborhood in Houston. The sun hung low, casting golden light over rows of elegant 2-story homes with pristine lawns and freshly washed SUVs parked in the driveways. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass and barbecue smoke drifting from a few backyards. Jamal Carter, a 32-year-old software engineer with short, neatly trimmed black hair and a well-groomed beard, stood outside his recently purchased home. He wore a gray hoodie over a white t-shirt, paired with ripped blue jeans and white sneakers. His dark brown skin glistened with sweat as he adjusted a Wi-Fi router box near his front door. He had been dealing with a weak signal for days, and today was the day to finally fix it. Across the street, Karen Whitmore, a 48-year-old white woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and pearl earrings, sat in her large bay window, sipping iced tea from a tall glass. Dressed in a fitted pink cardigan and beige slacks, she looked like the embodiment of a polished suburban housewife. Her sharp blue eyes narrowed as she watched Jamal. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Who is this man? What is he doing here? This is a safe neighborhood. People like him don't just move in. She grabbed her phone and quickly dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Karen glanced again at Jamal, who was now crouched down, adjusting a cable. There's a suspicious black man outside my neighbor's house, she whispered urgently. He's tampering with some kind of device, probably trying to break in. Ma'am, can you describe the suspect? He's wearing a hoodie, gray, I think, ripped jeans. Looks rough. I don't recognize him at all, and my neighbors are away, so I know he doesn't belong there. The dispatcher's voice remained neutral. We're sending officers to the location. Please stay inside and do not engage. Karen smiled in satisfaction. I knew it, she murmured to herself. Minutes later, the distant wail of sirens broke the tranquility of the neighborhood. 3 police cruisers, lights flashing, roared down the street and screeched to a stop in front of Jamal's house. Jamal, still focused on the router, barely had time to register what was happening before 3 officers, 2 white, 1 Hispanic, jumped out of their vehicles. Their hands hovered over their holstered weapons. Hands up! Step away from the device! One of them barked, his voice sharp with authority. Jamal's heart pounded as he turned, stunned. What? I said hands up. Now! Jamal froze. The tension in the air was suffocating. From her window, Karen smirked, sipping her iced tea as if watching a TV drama unfold in real time. Jamal lifted his hands slowly, fingers spread wide. His heart slammed against his ribs as he struggled to process what was happening. This is my house, he stammered. I'm fixing my Wi-Fi. Step away from the device! The aggressive officer barked again, moving closer, his hand resting on his gun. Jamal exhaled sharply and did as he was told, stepping away from the router. The Hispanic officer seemed hesitant, but the 2 white officers were already in full control mode. Do you have identification? The Hispanic officer asked, his voice more neutral. Jamal nodded. Yeah, in my back pocket. Don't move, the aggressive officer snapped. He yanked Jamal's wallet from his jeans, flipping it open. His sharp eyes scanned the license. Jamal Carter, he read aloud, his lips pressing into a thin line. Then his eyes flicked toward the house. The hesitation was brief, but it was there. Karen, now standing on her porch, crossed her arms. He stole that ID, she declared. I've lived here for 12 years, officer. I know who lives here. That's not one of them. Jamal's jaw tightened. He had dealt with this before. The assumptions, the automatic suspicion. But this was his own home. Ma'am, the Hispanic officer turned to Karen. Are you certain? Because if this man owns the house— I'm telling you, I know my neighborhood, Karen interrupted. This is a family neighborhood. We don't have his kind moving in. Jamal let out a slow, controlled breath. Wow, he muttered. You didn't even try to hide it, huh? The aggressive officer ignored him, turning toward the Hispanic officer. Run his ID. Check the records. Jamal clenched his fists. You could just ask me to show you my deed. It's inside. We'll see about that, the officer muttered. The radio crackled to life. Confirmed. Jamal Carter is the legal owner of the property. Purchased last month. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Jamal crossed his arms. Now what? The aggressive officer's face twitched with irritation, but he stepped back. You're free to go. Jamal let out a bitter laugh. That's it? No apology? No sorry for slamming me against my own car? Nothing? The Hispanic officer hesitated. Sir, we were just responding to a call. Oh, I know what you were doing, Jamal cut in. He turned to Karen, eyes burning. And you saw me and assumed I was a criminal. Why? Because I don't look like your neighbors? Karen scoffed, still playing the victim. I was just protecting the neighborhood. You should thank me. Thank you? Jamal's voice rose. You had me nearly arrested at my own damn house. The Hispanic officer cleared his throat. Actually, Ms. Whitmore, knowingly making a false police report is a criminal offense. Karen's smug expression faltered. What? That's right, the officer continued. And considering the circumstances, this could be considered racial profiling. The aggressive officer, still annoyed but now more cautious, turned toward her. If you knowingly reported a crime that wasn't happening, especially one targeting someone based on race, that's serious. Karen's face paled. Wait, I was just being cautious. You can't seriously think— Jamal folded his arms, watching the panic set in. For once, the tables had turned. Jamal wrenched himself free. So, am I free to go now, or do you need Karen's permission? The aggressive officer looked irritated but stepped back. You're free to go. That's it? Jamal scoffed. No apology? Nothing? The Hispanic officer looked guilty. Sir, we were just responding to a call. Yeah, a call from a racist woman who assumed I was a criminal just because of my skin color, Jamal snapped. His voice was shaking, but he wasn't done. He turned to Karen. You owe me an apology. You saw me, assumed I was a threat, and called the cops. Why? Because I don't look like your neighbors? Karen sneered. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. From what? A black man with a router? The hesitant officer cleared his throat. Actually, Ms. Whitmore, making a false police report is a crime. Karen's smirk vanished. What? The aggressive officer, still clearly annoyed but now cautious, turned toward her. If you knowingly reported a crime that wasn't happening, especially one targeting someone based on race, that's serious. Karen stammered. I didn't lie. Ma'am, we have body cam footage, the Hispanic officer said flatly. You saw him working on his own property, yet you called us anyway. Jamal crossed his arms. So what happens now? Karen's face went pale as the officers exchanged looks. 20 minutes later, Karen sat in the back of a police cruiser, hands cuffed in her lap. The Hispanic officer approached Jamal. Sir, you have the right to file charges for racial profiling and false reporting. It's up to you. Jamal stared at Karen, shaking his head. She's not worth my time, but I will be talking to my lawyer. Karen, finally realizing the gravity of the situation, panicked. Wait, I didn't mean, I was just... The cruiser door slammed shut. Jamal turned to the officers. And next time, maybe investigate before throwing me against a car? The hesitant officer nodded. You're right. We'll do better. Jamal exhaled. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was a start. As the police cars drove away, neighbors peeked from their windows, some embarrassed, some ashamed. Jamal turned, walked inside, and locked his door. His Wi-Fi connection was finally stable.